Good morning. Good morning. If I can call the meeting to order, please. Doug, I believe we have a number of public speakers. May I turn this over to you?
You may indeed, and we have a large number of public speakers. So if everyone would please line up near the podium when I call their names. They are Kate Slevin, Jean Rushinoff, Marty Goodman, Donald Yates, and Onisha Patelet, and Jesse Mendoza. If you would all line up near the podium in that order. 2 minutes per speaker, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm Kate Slevin, Executive Director of the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, a regional policy watchdog organization. New Yorkers need leadership from their elected officials to avoid these devastating service cuts. The cuts have been tweaked from the December proposal, and though the MTA has tried to reduce their impact, the cuts will still affect the lives of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers and must be stopped. Transit riders and parents are understandably furious. Subway and bus riders face longer commutes and slower service with the elimination of dozens of bus routes in one subway line. Long Island bus riders now face cuts on 34% of the routes in their network. LAR and Metro North riders face the longer waits and more crowded trains. Unfortunately, no one will be spared from the impacts of these cuts. From more traffic congestion to longer waits for trains, they will blanket the region like a heavy winter snowstorm. But the conversation is not over. There are people who can stop these cuts from happening, and they are Governor Patterson and the state legislature. The state cut funding to the system and is leaving transit riders in a lurch. Trying to achieve a solvent state budget through the pockets of transit riders is simply unfair. Mayor Michael Bloomberg and the City Council, New York City has not increased funding to the MTA since 1995. Mayor Bloomberg must step up for New Yorkers. MTA Chairman Jay Walter, Congress has said transit agencies can use 10% of their federal stimulus funds for operations. Transit agencies in Seattle, Chicago, Portland, and D.C. have already taken advantage of this federal provision to stop cuts and hikes. MTA Chairman Walter can show his empathy for transit riders by doing the same. Nassau County Executive Ed Mangano. 2 days ago, Nassau County Legislator Peter Schmidt voted to give himself and his colleagues a raise instead of reinstating county funding for Long Island Bus. County Executive Mangano should continue to impose these raises and instead use the funds to help the thousands of Long Island bus riders that often have no other way to get around. And finally, transit riders, make your voices heard. You don't have to stand for these cuts. Tell your elected officials how you feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker actually is the Honorable James Falca, member of the New York City Council, and then he'll be followed by Jean Rushinoff.
Yes, members of the MTA Board, Mr. Walder, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm James Vacker, and I'm chair of the Transportation Committee of the New York City Council. I realize the MTA is in a very tough position financially. I was disappointed when I saw the governor's budget and I saw that the provision for the state to assist in the Metro cards that he had indicated he was going to fulfill was not met. The Metro cards are not funded by the state again. I know that your proposal is a revised proposal, but it's a revised proposal of cuts. I understand that there may be a will to address the situation with your limited resources, but I have to say that the revised proposal is really a rearranging of the chairs on the Titanic deck, because people who were without service will still be without service because the extensions proposed will be reductions from existing routes. And routes that were not eliminated before are eliminated now. People on City Island will have no express bus service to Manhattan. They will be stranded. They will have to take a car, if they have a car, to the train. And those issues prevail in this plan as well. We did put forth a plan at the City Council level, which I did submit several weeks ago when you met last, which involves the use of federal stimulus money. And that provision, with the provision that operating expense money that the MTA now commits to the capital budget of around $50 million, combined with the $90 million in stimulus, provided $140 million. Ladies and gentlemen, the revised plan you have today takes from Peter to pay Paul. And by doing that, we're leaving many citizens without service, citizens who in good faith have paid more fares, higher bridge tolls. We'd like you to look at this again. I think it's urgent that these cuts not go forth, that we look at Access-a-Ride, we look at the Metro cards, save them, and do what we can to keep transit services intact. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We've also been joined by the Borough President of Manhattan, Scott Stringer. If we can take the Borough President at this time. And then he will be followed by Gene Rushinoff, Marty Goodman, Donald Yates, Anisha Portlet, and Jesse Mendoza and Murray Bowden. Mr. Borough President.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you. I'm actually here delivering 16,482 petitions from people from around the city of New York who want to directly talk to you about why it's important to restore money for student Metro cards. This is an issue I came to talk to you about on a number of occasions, but I wanted you to get the full flavor of what's happening in our city. There are parents who are really worried that they can't provide transportation costs to their children. There are kids who are now worried that the only way they're going to be able to get to school is to jump a turnstile or not go to school at all. This is not the way to convince Albany and others that you need money. The reality is that we leave children harmless. We don't threaten them. We don't impede their ability to go to school. These petitions speak directly to you, and I want to just take my remaining time to talk and tell you directly what some of the students said in their comments. And I also expect all of you to read 16,482 petition signatures, but I want to just give you the flavor. One student wrote and said, without the student Metro cards, since it's my senior year, I won't be able to finish high school. I can't afford to buy Metro cards for every day I have school. They are crucial to my future and my education. Another student wrote, I don't have money to pay for a Metro card. My mom doesn't have money either. I'm going to have to get a job, but a lot of places won't hire me because I'm too young and I should be in school. Another, without student Metro cards, my children cannot continue to go to school. Yet another, without my student Metro card years ago, I would not have had the many opportunities that I did to get ahead in life. And finally, we will be the only city in the country requiring children to go to school miles from their home without free transportation. So in conclusion, you know the real deal here. The reality is that our school bus for New York City kids plays out in our subway and bus system. I urge you, I know what you're going through. We want to work on you with this deficit. We want to shake up Albany just as much as you do. But the reality is we can't use kids as a bait and switch. Thank you, and I submit these petitions on behalf of the people of the city of New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. Our next speaker is Gene Rushinoff, followed by Marty Goodman and Donald Yates. Mr. Rushinoff.
Good morning. I'm Gene Rushinoff with the Strap Hangers Campaign. As City Councilman James Vaca explained, the Council and IPERG have proposed several actions to prevent the cuts that you've proposed to service, the student Metro cards, and to paratransit. Specifically, we are urging that the MTA use 10% of its federal stimulus funds and other operating money that's available to prevent these cuts in 2010. Now, it's incorrect to say that these steps are taking transit capital dollars to pay for operations. Federal law specifically allows a small portion, 10% of the transit stimulus money, to pay to maintain service. Congress and the President recognized it was in the national interest to help transit agencies maintain their service in this troubled economy. Agencies in Atlanta, Portland, Chicago, St. Louis are all using this option to maintain vital service and jobs. The use of the stimulus money for operations would be short-term to help agencies and their riders through very tough times. And in my view, it's wrong to compare this to the beam shuffle, which the MTA does frequently. There, the city convinced the federal government to allow the use of $88 million that was earmarked already for construction of a subway tunnel as a loan to underwrite the transit fare. Here, we are not talking about a special exception for New York. We're talking about national policy. And on our other suggestion, right now the MTA is planning to spend $50 million in operating funds on capital projects. How can you direct operating funds to capital? Just the reverse of taking capital funds from operating. How can you take operating funds and thereby worsen service cuts at a time when the operating budget is so badly pinched. The Strap Hangers campaign thinks you should change course and use these two operating funds to maintain service. The proposed deep cuts to service will only darken the overall climate for future capital investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rushinoff. Marty Goodman, then Donald Yates.
Marty passed, Doug.
Oh, okay. Then. Oh, there he is.
Hello, my name is Marty Goodman. I'm a station agent and union activist. I'd just like to say that I don't think there really is a budget crisis that we can believe. I think we're wasting a whole lot of money paying off banks, paying off tax-free MTA bonds. Hundreds of millions of dollars are going down the drain to pay off people that provoked the budget crisis in the beginning. People like Bernie Madoff and so on that working people are so rightfully angry at. We don't want to have our services cut, and we will not tolerate a single layoff. If you lay us off, we will shut you down. Nobody has to go to school. Nobody has to show up for work. I warn you, we're reaching critical mass in this city and in this country where we're going to use the French option of shutting the entire country down to preserve our services and preserve what we have rightfully fought for. Now, tonight, we're going to hear from Mr. Obama, who's going to take a page from the Republicans and cut the budget to services. We are seeing now that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And it's up to labor to mobilize in the street and on the job to tell the people that run this country, the rich, many of whom are assembled here right now, that we will not tolerate this class warfare, and that's precisely what it is, class warfare. For transit workers, we insist that you pay us our money, give up your lawsuit. We are going to join a movement in this city to fight all the cuts and all the attacks. We're going to fight school layoffs. We're going to fight transit layoffs with every ounce of energy that we have. Maybe next month or the following month, we'll have 10,000 people out in the street and shut down Manhattan. That's the way it's got to be if you're going to keep on doing what
Please.
You're going to do.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Donald Yates, Anisha Portlet, Jesse Mendoza, Murray Bowden, and Paul Piazza.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. My name is Donald Yates. I'm a bus operator and an officer from the Transport Workers Union. According to current plans, bus service is going to take a hit, especially in the Bronx. What do I mean by take a hit? I mean some neighborhoods will have no service at night, some neighborhoods will have no service on weekends, and nearly everyone will get a longer wait. We are happy that some of the planned cuts to Manhattan service are off the table. We are not happy that the Bronx is getting the cuts instead. It is one thing to say on paper there is still service. All you need is 2 transfers and a half-mile hike. But in the real world, where our riders live, it doesn't work. These cuts will leave riders stranded. That's not what public transportation is supposed to do. I respectfully suggest that you keep the buses moving and keep the neighborhoods connected to the rest of the city. That is what public transportation is supposed to do. Thank you all.
Thank you. Anisha Portlet, and Jesse Mendoza, Murray Bowden, Paul Piazza.
Good morning to all. My name is Onisha Portlight. I'm the new director of the Women's Committee of TWU Local 100. I don't have a piece of paper to speak from. I've been reading and following everything before I came into position, and I'm gonna come to you humbly. You all sitting around this table, the podium, and the side chairs. In this room is so much power. I myself am a New York City graduate, from the public school system, and I stand before you as a director at 35 years of age. I ask you, I don't know what all is going to entail, what all is going to, you guys are going to have to do. I'm more sure it's going to be long hours, but I come to you mercifully on the behalf of the students of New York City to please find a way. There's so much going on. They have so much pressure that they have to deal in a day-to-day life. Please find a way so these children can further their education and become an asset to us and to our country. Please let them ride free. Let them ride free. They don't cause any problems on the bus. I'm a bus operator from the Bronx, Kingsbridge Depot. Very respectful young kids. Please do whatever it is in your power, Mr. Walden. I know you have your work cut out for you, but please, if you can show mercy upon the children, it won't go unnoticed. Good day.
Thank you. Jesse Mendoza, then Murray Bowden, Paul Piazza, and Matthew Shotkin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jesse Mendoza. I'm a bus operator from the Bronx. I'm also representing TWU Local 100. Mr. Walder, it has made it clear that the watchword of his administration is going to be make every dollar count. You can't disagree with that. We would just like to point out that there are right now tens of millions of dollars that could be made to count on keeping buses and trains running, the ARRA dollars and the stimulus dollars. And there is legislation pending in Washington to make more available legislation supported by New York's own senators. As long as we're making every dollar count, let's make those hundreds of millions of dollars count. Let's get the legislation through Washington. What would take that? Well, let's start with showing up. Our president, Mr. John Samuelson, is putting together a coalition to the Washington to support the bill. We would like nothing better, Mr. Chairman, than you to be there. I hope you will take that opportunity to be there and make the dollars count. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Murray Bowden, then Paul Piazza, Matthew Shotkin, and Helen Brandt.
A couple of months ago, I raised the issue of train horns at the Long Island Railroad. Got a very nice letter from the president saying an acceptance of the status quo, what the federal rules were. But in fact, the federal rules were outdated 50 years ago. This morning I came in from the Hartsdale station, and of the 5 trains that passed, 4 did not blow their horns. The 5th one did, the diesel from Wassaic. And that was at an empty station. The issue of the rail line to Montauk and Greenport was built for a tourist trade that no longer exists, and the trains and the people are on the road. Give up the track. I was born in Yonkers, for half a block from the main line in New York Central. When I moved to South Yonkers, across the street was a railroad station that went to Getty Square. Long gone. I moved to Ardsley, there was a line through Ardsley, long gone. The line to Montauk should be closed down. Your numbers were incorrect in that you did not take into consideration the amount of gas wasted, people waiting, the amount of time wasted, people waiting. So your calculations for the amount of money that can be saved is global, not local. The ecological cost of having those crossings there needs to be included in the money saved. So you need to do a global analysis of what's going on, not just the instantaneous analysis. The world's changing. Some of those rules that were used 50 years ago are no longer applicable. You cannot accept the federal regulations as being gospel because they are no longer valid.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Paul Piazza, and Matthew Shotkin, Helen Brandt, Sally Audrey, then William Henderson.
Good morning. My name is Paul Piaz. I'm a station agent and a representative of TW Local 100. The last time I spoke before this board, I cautioned on the adverse effect that closing station booths would have on our most vulnerable customers, which are the elderly, school children, and the disabled. Since then, we've had over 100 booths closed, accessoride is being cut, and you're going to take away the kids' passes. I would like to remind this board that they are charged with providing affordable, clean, convenient, reliable, safe transportation for the people of the city of New York. The base fare is $2.50, but many groups like the strap hangers said it's worth much less. Clean, the station cleaners are understaffed, vastly understaffed, and they don't cover jobs because they don't want to pay overtime. So your stations are dirty. As a matter of fact, last year I worked at a station in a 6-month period. The AM job was covered once in a 6-month period. Convenient, you have vending machines and no station agents. Go down to the stations with a $20 bill, try to get change, see what happens. Reliable, service cuts. It's not going to be too reliable after that. Safe, again, you have no station agents, no presence on many stations. It's a recipe for disaster. I just want to say, Mr. Walder, you are the new captain of what many call the Titanic. It will be up to you whether we hit that iceberg, whether we make a left turn and get this ship right. I hope we all do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Shotkin.
Good morning, Mr. Walder. Doug, your tie is very nice.
I finally made the grade, huh? Thank you.
Well, Andrew's off the board now, so Borough President Stringer is right. Student fare MetroCard proposal should be taken off the table. Why should students be taxed for going to and from school? According to a letter that I was handed right before this meeting, George Haikalis said in this letter that funding for the 2nd Avenue subway should be reduced. The Metro Fare Card proposal should say that stranded riders are a no-go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Helen Brandt. And then Sally Audrey, William Henderson, and Jim Blair.
Good morning. I'm here representing myself, and I'm from the Bronx. I just have 2 points to make. First, with the high school students having to pay, we're talking about $20 a week, a ballpark figure, during the school year. And if there are 2 children in a family going to high school, then we're talking $40 a week. That's a lot of money. I would anticipate that there will be switching around of schools. When you go to elementary school, you go in your neighborhood. When you look for a high school, you're looking for a school that's going to meet your needs. Chances are that's not going to be in your neighborhood. So I hope you're working with the Board of Education so that they can accommodate any switching that may take place. But the second thing that I want to discuss, if I buy 10 rides at a time, I get 11 rides. I get 1 free. I buy 10 at a time for the convenience of it, not to get a free ride. If I buy 20, then I get 2 free rides. Now there's something else that's new. I saw it the other day when I went to put money on my MetroCard, and there was a sign that said 2 rides, and I forget what that was, 4 rides, $8. I thought the fare was $2.25. Why is the MTA giving away, foregoing all that income if it's broke? What is the sense of that? If I am paying full fare, $2.25, and I get this free ride, I'm saving maybe $100 a year. I'm getting $100 a year free. To me, that's not a whole lot of money. in relation to what I'm paying for the rides. But if you multiply this by all the people who get that free ride, that is a lot of money that the MTA is giving up. Why? If you're broke, don't give away your merchandise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sally Audrey.
Yes, good morning. My
To be
name is
followed by William Henderson, Jim Blair, Andrew Albert, and then George Spitz will be the last speaker.
Good morning. My name is Sally Ardrey. My problem is the 2nd Avenue subway. I have come to the board to ask for help. The MTA has denied me compensation for forcing me to move from my rent-stabilized home of 16 years at 257 East 72nd Street, apartment 1A. The MTA is treating me very unfairly. I asked the board to please have the real estate department review my file. To date, my written appeal, which I will pass out to you, has not been acknowledged. The MTA offered me a lump sum of $65,000 on condition that I take an apartment for a one-year lease of $2,195 a month. Why should there be a condition to move out of my old apartment when the MTA was forcing me to do so? I was frightened to take on a higher number in an escalating rental market, and it did not seem a good value compared to my old apartment. As a single senior citizen on a limited income, I felt more comfortable taking on a lesser rent. The MTA is penalizing me for doing so. I need the MTA's help going forward. In a few years, as soon as my new rent, crosses my old rent threshold, I need a buffer. I need financial protection for the future. Why should I be treated differently than the other senior citizens who are being relocated and given future financial protection? Thank you so much for listening to my remarks. And I hope you may decide in my favor. May I pass this around?
Yes, they'll take that from you. Next speaker, William Henderson, followed by Jim Blair, Andrew Albert, and George Spitz.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. We appreciate, first of all, we appreciate all the work that went into producing the public materials for the service changes. It's a big step forward in transparency, but what we saw from this transparency is not good news. Several of our members have expressed already, and will express today, that we have grave misgivings with the service reductions. We'll address specific proposals at a later time, but we call on the board to recognize that these proposals make fundamental changes in the nature of the MTA and reflect fundamental changes in the mission of the MTA, and will affect the nature of service for years to come. When you make proposals like reducing west of Hudson service, discontinuing regular service between Ronkonkoma and Greenport, modifying subway loading guidelines that'll result in less smooth and less regular service, changing bus routes and bus span of service, dramatically cutting Long Island Bus, removing the subsidy for student MetroCard. We're changing what the MTA is. It's just that it's the essence of the MTA is at risk here. This is not tinkering around the edges. Sometimes we recognize that the decisions we make are important and momentous only in retrospect. We're asking you not to do that today. To look with the eyes wide open from the first, and realize that what we're doing is we're talking about changing what transit means to New Yorkers and what the New York way of life is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Jim Blair.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Chairman Walder and board members. My name is James Blair. I'm a member of the Metro North Commuter Council and a former rider representative on this board. In my remarks about the proposed service reductions, I want to focus on the disproportionate burden that Metro North's west of Hudson customers would bear under these proposals. There are 13 weekday trains each way on the Port Jervis line, and 18 inbound and 19 outbound weekday trains on the Pascack Valley line. The service changes that have been proposed would discontinue 4 of these trains. This represents a substantial proportion of the service provided to an area that, while a part of the MTA region, is already served at a lower level than its east of Hudson neighbors. While I applaud the Metro North management for its efforts to minimize the passenger impact of these reductions, the west of Hudson reductions are estimated to affect 750 riders daily. This amounts to about 1/10 of the west of Hudson ridership. As these proposals are considered, it's imperative that we search for ways to more equitably spread the burden of any necessary reductions. We must maintain a base level of decent service for all areas within the MTA region. To do this, I believe that we must examine the west of Hudson reductions carefully. Over the last several years, Metro North has successfully built ridership west of Hudson. The proposed service cuts will undercut these efforts and will push riders back to their cars. It will be very difficult to recover those riders once they're gone. I urge Metro North to re-examine and reevaluate the west of Hudson cuts and to find a more proportionate and less destructive way to achieve the necessary cost savings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Andrew Albert is our next speaker.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say something, please. All of these cuts throughout all the agencies draw blood. I really appreciate the Commuter Council for recognizing that the severity of the cuts on the PJ and the Pascack Valley line are severe, very severe. We are your smallest component, but we pay our taxes just like everyone else. We have 13 trains that come into the city all day. To lose even one of them is terrible. But the more important thing for everybody and all the speakers here to remember is that we really are having hearings so we can listen to you. And it's important that all of the people who are influenced and injured by these cuts come and speak to us. That's why we're doing the hearings. I appreciate what everybody here is saying, but it's still important to be heard again publicly. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Walder and board members. It's mortifying to see how easily I've been replaced. Doug, you do have a nice tie. I have to agree. You know, you've all heard the saying, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, I would turn that around and I would ask, which comes first, the service cuts or passengers abandoning the system? We've had this battle for years, and I maintain and have over the years that as service has declined in places, so has the ridership. And I think we're going to see that if these cuts are allowed to go forward. Whatever ridership loss we've had, and it's been relatively small compared to the economic decline. I mean, the subway ridership has maintained pretty steadily, I'm pleased to say. I think we're going to see a real diminution in ridership if these cuts are allowed to go forward. Commissioner Pally raised a very interesting and I think a very correct issue at the Long Island Council meeting yesterday, which was we should be talking about the social benefit and the rightness of providing service to all our communities, since all our communities are tax-paying. And in the case of Orange, Rockland, and Eastern Long Island, they're going to be hit with a double whammy. Not only are they getting hit with the payroll tax, but their services being dramatically reduced. That just is not going to fly in an election year, from my point of view. The cuts are supposed to be where there's little or no, they're not supposed to happen where there's little or no alternatives. Yet, in the case of the S60, there is no alternative for the Grimes Hill customer to the S60 bus. In the case of the Q79 along the eastern spine of Queens, there is no alternative to those communities. And, of course, eastern Queens is going to get a double whammy because not only are they going to lose the Q79, but their Port Washington branch service is going to be cut in half off-peak and weekends. That should be a transit line. That's how important the Port Washington branch is. 90% of it is in the city of New York. That has really been built up to an amazing service. Perhaps a demonstration project where a line can be taken and spruced up and the service really invigorated, and see if that attracts customers ought to be attempted. Amtrak did that on the Empire Builder, and it really achieved rewards. Also, the loss of these services is going to devalue property values, which is going to make it tougher for communities to collect real estate tax. I can only imagine what this is going to do to the vacation homes in eastern Long Island and in the Orange and Rockland County areas when the service is down. That's a selling point for these properties. We can't keep cutting service back as the answer to our fiscal problems. We're in the service business. We have to get funding from other sources, and I think everything should be put on the table, whether it's another congestion pricing or tolls on the free bridges. Something has to happen so that our customers do not go through this each and every year. The last thing I would say is that I think the public hearings are going to really be an eye-opener for all of you, and I hope to be there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. I concur with your taste in clothing. Our last speaker today is George Spitz.
Yes. I may sound like a broken record, but I blame virtually all of the problems on spending $4.65 billion on 1.7 miles of construction on the 2nd Avenue subway. And Scott Stringer was here before, and the East Side Democrats, legislators, deceived people by claiming that George Bush, in return for their support for the Iraq War, paid for all of it. The federal government is only paying for $1.3 billion of the $4.65 billion. And the rest, there's $450 million from the state bond issue, and the rest comes out of the operating capital budget paid for by issuing bonds, of which there's debt service. The costs are going to go up and up and up. If you take that $1.3 billion that Bush promised them, and I want to make a comment to Alan, my friend Finelli, that his congressman voted for $200 million of that $1.3 billion recently for the 2nd Avenue subway, when that money's, if they put light rail on 2nd Avenue instead, there'd be money for the light rail on the north and west shore of Staten Island, extensions in Brooklyn, at the Middle Basin area, extensions in Eastern Queens, all coming out of that $1.3 billion. And you wouldn't have the pressures, you wouldn't have to raise fares or cut services. As people find out more and more what McMahon is an example, their people in Staten Island, Queens, Brooklyn, and they're going to hear about it at the hearings, are appropriating money for this $1.3 billion, 96 to 63rd Street, $4.65 billion 2nd Avenue subway. I urge you to do what they had the sense to do in the 70s, Mr. Walder. They shut down the 2nd Avenue construction after it had gone from 105th to 96th Street. Shut this down, substitute light rail, take the balance of the federal money, spend it for Staten Island, Queens, and Brooklyn, and there'll be no pressure on the operating budget.
Please conclude your comments, Mr. Spitz.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and that concludes the end of today's public speaking session.
Doug, thank you very much, and thank you to our public speakers. Good morning to everyone. Last month, this board moved very quickly to deal with a difficult financial situation. We adopted a budget that included painful service cuts. When we sat around the table, I said we would take the next month to try to review that, to try to lessen some of the impacts that were there. We clearly have tried to do that. We've had full discussions at our committee meetings. I believe we have, in many cases, reduced the impacts, although I would certainly agree with our public speakers that in no way have we taken away the negative impacts that come from the service reductions that are here. That is a testament, I think, fortunately, and in this case, unfortunately, to the great importance that our transit system has throughout the region and the difficulty of being able to trim back service when so many people across the metropolitan region rely on this service. And as I think Susan has pointed out, we will continue to have discussion and debate this through the public hearing process, and then further process it will come back to the board later this year. I would also call to everyone's attention the truly unprecedented amount of information that we've put together, and to thank the staffs across the agency for working very hard, very quickly to be able to do that. People can now go on our website and look at every single bus route in the city of New York. Look at the ridership, look at the one-year ridership trend, the five-year ridership trend, the operating costs on that bus route. I think to open that up, to give that information, is the type of transparency that people have called for from the MTA. It's opening up the black box, it's taking it away, and it should be part of what informs the public debate that we have. Now, I'd like to tell you that the bad times are over, and that everything is going to be good from here forward. But, you know, in the midst of dealing with all this, the governor's budget came out, and the governor's budget, while it did not reduce resources to the MTA in the sense of cutting us, it re-estimated the dedicated revenues for the MTA, and those re-estimates have us down by about another $100 million from where we were when we had a discussion before. And to put that in some context for the people around the table, when Albany acted last May, when they enacted the rescue plan for the MTA, if we look at this, just 8 months later, as we sit here today, we are down $500 million from where we expected to be if we look over simply 09 and calendar year 10. That's an extraordinary sum of money for the organization. It's why we're grappling with this terrible problem. I think it's too soon to know what really happens with the governor's budget. It's too soon to know what happens with our revenue sources. But, you know, the direction of travel that we are in continues to be rough and rocky, and we'll obviously have to guide a lot of the things that we're doing. I think it also underscores the discussion we had last month about the fact that we have a responsibility to ensure that we're doing everything as efficiently as possible in this organization. Along those lines, 2 weeks ago, I released the report on my first 100 days at the MTA. The report simply expands on the points that I made at this meeting, that I believe that we have to comprehensively overhaul the way that we do business, but at the same time, I think we need to keep our commitment to service improvements. What I wanted to be clear about is that we did not stop with the production of this report. Indeed, we were moving even before the report was produced. We've created a sharply focused internal team which is targeting a handful of key areas to try to pick out and drive savings quickly and forcibly in the organizations. And in some areas where the efficiency is especially obvious, and I spent a fair bit of time talking about the 92 call-in numbers for the MTA. We're looking to see how we can partner, for example, with the City of New York and their 311 service, which is a much more efficient and effective way of being able to do some of this. So we don't need to invent everything here. If there are ways of being able to do things that piggyback off things that are already there, let's seize those opportunities and let's be able to do it. I don't think this is standard operating procedure for the organization. People are not doing this as a part-time effort. People are focused on doing it. We're not creating long reports. We are creating recommendations that can be implemented quickly and fully. We've also made progress finding creative and affordable ways to try to improve our services. I hope that people have seen the new website for the MTA. The new website puts customer information right up front. I have been very pleased to see the public reaction to the website. It has been quite strong and quite favorable. There have also been a number of suggestions that have come through where we can improve it. And again, I think we have a responsibility not just to treat this as bricks and mortar, but treat this as a living, breathing thing that we can continue to move forward in a different way. We also have looked at other things that we can do quickly. On Monday, Helena Williams and I introduced a new service for the Long Island Railroad. That's a low-tech solution on any cell phone to be able to get schedule information, delay information on your cell phone, just texted right to your phone. I carry a fair degree of skepticism about some of these things. I sat down, I tried it, and literally in just a few seconds it came right back, and it was great to see. Metro North is a similar type of application called their train time application, and we're now in a process that we're going to let 1,000 flowers bloom on these things. We're going to see what comes out of it. We're going to engage the developer communities and be able to do it. And in many cases, such as what we're doing with Long Island Railroad right now, we're doing it at absolutely no cost to us and absolutely no cost to our customers. And there may well be more ways to be able to do those things. We have to be serious about doing this. I think we are serious. We have to recognize how hard it's going to be to change the ways of business at the MTA. It's going to keep focus. It's going to need stamina to be able to do that. I thank all of the management team who are deeply committed to trying to make this change, and we're working hard to be able to do that. I appreciate the words that have come back from many members of the board, and really the whole board, with the support to say that we can take this path to do this. And I think we should use our meetings on a going forward basis for regular discussions about how we are making progress in doing it. And I continue to look forward to working with everyone to effect the types of changes that will, I hope, give us a stronger transit system in the future. Thank you. I'd like to turn to the regular order of business, which is to ask for a vote for the minutes of the December meetings, please.
I move that they be adopted.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay. I turn then to the report on the Committee on Finance. Mr. Saul.
There are two action items. The first action item seeks approval of the supplemental bond resolution found on pages 35 to 49 of the board materials and the authorization to take such other actions as more fully described in the staff summary on pages 31 and 32. All in connection with the issuance of Transportation Revenue Bond Series 2010B in an amount up to $650 million. The second action item seeks approval of the Revenue Anticipation Note Resolution and related documents found on pages 53 to 86, and the authorization to take such other actions is more fully described in the staff summary on pages 51 and 52 of the board materials, all in connection with the issuance of Transportation Revenue Anticipation Notes in an amount up to $700 million. I move both action items.
Do I have a second, please? In favor? Thank you.
There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications this month. There is one competitive procurement this month in the amount of $130,000. I move this procurement.
Do I have a second? Second. In favor? Thank you.
That concludes the finance report, Mr. Chairman.
Just in the area of finance, if I might, in examining the operations of this board or of the agency, we're looking at employees, we're looking at all kinds of ways in which to institute savings. And I think many of the suggestions that we've made in the past have become practice, and I'm happy to see that. including bringing these bond issues to the board before they take place. Another area that I would like to see, and I know that some other board members have mentioned to me, is an examination of our financial consultants. Times have changed. The fees that are paid out to some of these consultants are enormous. And I would hope that as part of our desire to get a best bang for our buck, that we examine the way in which we let these contracts out to these consultants and see if we can bring some of these costs down as well.
Okay, noted, and thank you. If I could turn then now to the report from the Transit Committee, Ms. Fresca.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Transit Committee, I present for the Board's approval the following: 11 transit procurements totaling $54.6 million. 2 are non-competitive for $4.9 million. The amount reflects the reduction in the scope of work and the amount awarded in the track engineering contract, which reduction was approved by the Transit Committee this month. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Do we have a second, please? In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
There are 5 competitive procurements in the amount of $47.1. The committee recommends them, and I move them.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
There are 4 ratifications in the amount of $2.6 million. The committee recommends them, and I approve them.
In favor? Thank you.
With regard to MTA Bus, there are once again no procurements this month. This concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Paley.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. For the Long Island Committee, for the Long Island Railroad, there are no non-competitive procurements this month. There is one competitive procurement in the amount of $200,000. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it. Second.
In favor? Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. There are 3 ratifications this month in the amount of $1.126 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
In favor?
On Long Island Bus, there are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications this month. There is 1 non-competitive procurement in the amount of $61,310. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
In favor? Thank you.
This concludes the Long Island Committee report.
And I believe as a matter of efficiency,
We are going directly to bridges and tunnels.
Bridges and tunnels.
Yes. So we don't have to go back and forth. The Bridges and Tunnels Committee met this month. There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications. There are 3 competitive procurements in the amount of $379,000. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
In favor?
That concludes the Bridges and Tunnels report.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm not sure if it's efficiency or just confuses the chairman.
Yes, whatever.
But thank you. Mr. Sidora.
Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of achievements to report on.
Jim, put your mic.
The first one is in 2009 we had the highest on-time percentage of 97.84%. But in addition, earlier this month, for the first time in the history of the Metro-North Railroad, we had 100% weekend. Every train during the weekend was on time. For the first time, I believe, in the history of Metro-North. That is an accomplishment. East and west of Hudson. Now we get down to business. I'd like to present the following for the board's approval. There are no competitive procurements. There is 1 competitive procurement totaling $9 million, and it regarding transport of regulated and hazardous materials. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That concludes the Metro-North report.
Thank you
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what Jim neglected to point out, as Howard pointed out to me in his emails, was the connection between Metro-North service and the Jets' performance, which unfortunately was shattered last weekend. The report on capital construction, planning, and real estate. Nancy, please.
Capital construction, there are no competitive procurements this month. There was only 1. There were no non-competitive procurements, pardon me.
There is only one competitive procurement in the amount of $5 million. The committee recommended this, and I move it.
In favor?
Aye.
There were 4 ratifications this month, totaling $5,673,592. The committee recommended these as well, and I move them.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Lastly, the real estate portion of the committee recommended and reviewed a total of 11 real estate items for board approval. They were pretty much all of them were fully described in the board materials. There was one we spoke about at length, and we were a lease on a piece of office space, and Doreen and a bunch of us decided that once the department moves in there, we still moved it and voted on it and approved it. We'll go there and review the spacing. The committee recommended these items. I move them.
In favor?
Aye.
That concludes the meeting. All the meetings.
Thank you very much. I think that concludes the reports from our committees. May I then ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting? In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I mean, how you have...
Yeah, it's a question that is on all of our minds. Good morning.
This morning, TWU Local 100 leader John Samuelson said that in order to address the budget shortfall, the best thing to do would be to stop some of this capital spending, and much of it is wasteful on things like the countdown clocks, and that these improvements could be held off and instead go into operational expense to cover the budget and operational expenses. What's your response to that?
Well, 2 responses. One is, no city knows better than we do the difficulties of taking money out of the capital budget and using it for operating. We spent years digging ourselves out of that hole once before. And for all the people who look at this and say, it's just a little bit, recognize that there's no doubt in my mind that that's exactly what people said in the 1970s when they started down that path. I think the other point that I will continue to underscore is that we should not let the economic downturn be an excuse for not improving our services. We have things that we can do for our customers. They matter, and we should find ways to be able to do them. We're searching and working toward, as I said today, quick, affordable ways to be able to do things. Some of the initiatives, for example, that we introduced earlier this week are being done at absolutely no cost to the transit system. We're doing other things as pilots, but we must continue the path of moving forward on improving customer service for the 8.5 million people who rely on our transit system every day.
Hi, Jay. Can you address the call from some East End leaders for an MTA hearing out in eastern Suffolk County, I guess to deal with some of the cuts that they're facing?
They've written to me. I think the point they've made is a strong point, and we are going to hold a hearing on the east end of Long Island. I don't yet have a date, but we will hold a hearing on the east end of Long Island. The Hudson Yard negotiations have reached agreement in principle in regard to the business terms. We're working with our attorneys to be able to capture this in a numbingly large set of legal documents, and I expect I'll come back here in a couple of months.
Hi, Jay. Glenn Schuck from 1010 Wins. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to ask, the controller yesterday put out a report about security and the costs. I wonder if you could comment about his claim that it looks like these security measures cannot be completed based on the financial situation.
Sure. Let me step back for a second on this, because I think the Controller's report said a number of things. One of the points the Controller's report made is that we have made significant improvement in the security of our system since 9/11, and I think it's important for us always to recognize that that's the case. In doing that, we've hardened some of our high-priority facilities. We've undertaken some other actions that have taken place, and we've established a working basis both with the NYPD and with the MTA police to be able to do things. It's also clear, and I think it's been discussed before my time coming here, but clearly the case, that the Lockheed contract has been a debacle. We're in court now, and if you look on the board agenda that we had just today, we're approving items in relation to that litigation that's taken place. What the MTA has been seeking to do and what we are doing is to get the functionality of the various efforts that are there. I believe we'll get the functionality for all the things that were in the original contract, not always in the way that it was originally conceived to be able to do it. And we continue to work with the MTA police and with the NYPD to ensure that we are seeing the technology in the context of a broader policing strategy that is there. And in some cases, we've continued to use people on the ground in places where we thought that technology might otherwise replace them. But we will continue to assure that the system is safe and secure.
Jay, talking about your customers, we've been writing recently and others have focused on this. The police regularly give tickets to people in what some would think is a very heavy-handed manner, taking up more than one seat on an empty train, taking up more than one seat on a bench in an empty station, walking through trains when it's not even moving or not even on. I mean, those are your customers too. And do you think that it is a little too heavy-handed? And would you like to see anything change in that?
Well, I have read your reports and others' reports on it, Pete. I'm beginning a discussion with Commissioner Kelly and the NYPD to understand how they're handling this. I don't have a judgment to say it on this basis right now, but we'll have a discussion about it. We meet regularly to be able to talk about things of that nature. What I would point out, and I think we should recognize, is that the subway system today is the safest that it's ever been, and I think the efforts of NYPD in doing that through the myriad of actions that they're taking have been critically important to achieving that.
Well, do you have some concerns about why are you having this discussion?
We're having a discussion because I think it's important to follow up on the points that have been made, and if there are things that we should focus on and pay attention to, we'll do that. I mean, it's a regular course of business to continue to talk about the transit system between the MTA and the NYPD.
There's a concern, I guess, among drivers that the latest round of service cuts just creates a new baseline. Essentially, that the next time a cut service is built upon the subway headways and the longer waits and things like that. I mean, do you ever anticipate the service cuts that you have on the table now being rescinded, going back to, I guess, the old levels of service?
For the most part, we've made a point, and I've made a point of pointing out some of the areas where I think the service cuts are taking out services that were not being well utilized or extremely expensive. I have no apologies, for example, for the X25 from Grand Central to Wall Street. But for the most part, when you look at the service cuts, these really are cuts that are hurting parts of our population, the services that we would like to have and like to provide. The financial circumstance simply does not allow us to do that. We have sought in what we're doing, Tom, to put out a tremendous amount of information with the clarity about how we've thought about the issue, how we've looked at the types of changes to be able to make in an effort to be able to minimize those changes. But the changes are real. They do, in many cases, leave lasting impacts that do hurt. If the financial circumstance were different, we would be looking at this. But I don't have any indication, as we sit here today, that we're looking at a financial circumstance that's going to be better as we look at it in the near term.
Chairman, on the security contract, the comptroller said there wasn't much money left. Can you be any more specific about what you mean by how you're able to achieve the same functionality by meeting the current budget guidelines you have for that?
Well, we have had a process of going through and looking at the scope that was originally intended and what we were originally intending to achieve and how we can achieve the functionality in doing that. I do believe that we are taking a look at the budgets to try to ensure that in places where we believe that there are critical elements we want to do, that we have resources that are there to be able to do it. My understanding right now is that we have the resources to be able to achieve the functionality that was contained in the original scope. There have been some proposals that have been made to increase that scope, to change it, and to do other things that would require additional resources. And as we consider the changes in the capital program, we'll consider that as well. We're also working collectively with NYPD to see whether or not we may be able to access additional funding in terms of grants, for example, from Homeland Security. And to the extent that we're able to do that, that would obviously be beneficial as well.
When it comes to the east end of the Long Island Railroad, big concerns of people in Suffolk County. Can you give any ideas about a hearing in Suffolk County at all for people to come?
Yes,
Can you reiterate that, please?
Of course. I think the point's been made that people would like to have an opportunity to share a voice from Suffolk County in a convenient way in regard to this. I appreciate that, and we are in the process now of scheduling a hearing on the east end of Long Island.
Do we have a date at all?
I do not yet have a date.
There were some concerns today brought up about station cleanliness and having adequate workers to keep stations clean. What response would you have to that, considering the MTA's difficult financial situation right now?
I share that concern. If you look at the history of the MTA, in each downturn, each financial downturn, the first thing to go has been the cleaning and maintenance staff for the stations. I think that's been a mistake. I think we have invested hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars in new station facilities without adequate maintenance and cleaning to be able to keep them in good repair. And you can't do it like that. The stations are the gateway to our system, and they need to be treated with the same respect that we've been treating our trains, which is, as we renewed our train system, we invested in having scheduled maintenance services to be able to keep those trains in good condition. And when you go out on the line right now, that's what you see. You see trains that are clean and in good condition and operate well. We haven't treated our stations the same way. Tom Prendergast, in one of his highest priorities right now, is looking at how we are doing this in stations. We've protected the money to be able to clean the stations, to paint the stations, to do minor repairs in stations, and we need to find a way to be able to do it. But they're right.
Can you just talk a little bit, earlier today you talked about the governor's budget and the impact it's going to have, or the lack thereof impact it's going to have on helping out the agency as far as getting back in a fiscal way? Yeah.
Well, I think when we looked at we took the impacts of the deficit reduction plan, we looked at the actions the state had to take back in December to be able to meet its difficult financial situation. I think the point one would take out of the governor's budget is that the actions that were taken in December as part of the deficit reduction plan were treated as one-time actions. They were not continued forward in the governor's budget, which is good. That's good news. The bad news, unfortunately, is, as we have been saying and underscored here, there is continued fragility in the underlying dedicated taxes that come to the MTA, whether that's the payroll mobility tax or the petroleum business tax or the real estate taxes supporting the MTA. The current estimate for all of those taxes is somewhat below the estimates we had before. Now, these shift and they may change. They're within a range that is not falling off a cliff by any means, but the direction of travel for those resources is still headed in the wrong direction.
Mr. Walter, you heard the impassioned plea from the Manhattan Borough President in the form of the petitions regarding the student Metro cards and the 16,000 signatures that they brought before you. How realistic in your eyes that the MTA will be able to reinstate the full funding for the student Metro cards?
I appreciate the importance of free travel for our students, and it's certainly our aspiration to be able to provide free travel. This is a question for the state and the city governments. The free travel, the MTA, and I think one of the other speakers liken the MTA to being the school bus. The reality is, throughout the state of New York, school children board a yellow school bus in the morning. They do not pay a fare to do that. But that bus is supported by state and local resources to make that happen. The person who said that we're a yellow school bus, they're right. If we can find a way to get the support to be able to do that, I would love to have free Metro cards for the children. Thank you.